For these questions, we're finding a unit fraction of a number. Now, a unit fraction is any fraction which has a numerator of 1. And so to find a unit fraction of a number, all we need to do is divide it by the denominator. So for this first question, we're just dividing 18 by 3. That's 6, so 1/3 of 18 is 6. Now for 1/4 of 28, we're just dividing 28 by the denominator, and 28 divided by 4 is 7, so 1/4 of 28 is 7. To find 1/7 of 35, we just divide 35 by 7, so divide by the denominator, and that gives us 5, so that's our answer. So we know that normally to find a unit fraction of a number, remember a unit fraction is any fraction with 1 as the numerator. So to find a unit fraction of a number, we normally just divide by the denominator. But here we've got missing number problems, so we need to do the opposite. Instead of dividing by the denominator, we're going to multiply our answer by the denominator. So 7 times 6 is 42, so 1/6 of 42 is 7. And that makes sense because 42 divided by 6 is 7. Now, for 1/8 of something is 5, we're going to work out 5 times 8. That's 40, so 1/8 of 40 is 5. And that makes sense because 40 divided by 8 is 5. Now find 1/9 of something equals 2. Again, because it's missing number, rather than dividing denominator, we're going to multiply. 2 times 9 is 18, so 1/9 of 18 is 2, because 18 divided by 9 is 2. So here we've got one big rectangle with 40 circles. And we can think of this rectangle as a fraction bar. So if we take half of our 40 circles, we've now got 20 circles. So half of 40 is 20. But now let's think about those 20 circles. If we take half of those 20 circles, half of 20 is 10. But notice our fraction bar is now showing 1/4 shaded. Remember, we had 40 at the start altogether, so 1/4 of 40 is also 10. So you can find a quarter by halving and then halving again. So now let's look at these 10 circles. If we split them in half again, we now have 5. So half of 10 is 5. That means 1/8 of 40 is also 5, because if you look at how much of our fraction bar is shaded, we've got 1 part out of 8. So we can find 1/8 by halving, halving again, and then halving again. Now here we have 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24 circles. If we halve it, half of 24 is 12. Now, if we take those 12 circles and split them in half again, we have 6. So half of 12 is 6, but notice the fraction bar. We can also see that 1/4 of 24 is 6, because if we halve and halve again, we get 1/4. Now, we can take those 6, split them in half again, and we have 3. So half of 6 is 3, but we can also see, if we look at our fraction bar, that we now have 1 part out of 8 shaded. So we can say that 1/8 of 24 is also 3. So if you halve, halve again, and halve again, you can find 1/8. So here we're finding non-unit fractions of numbers, and these are non-unit fractions because the numerator isn't 1. So to find a non-unit fraction of a number, we divide it by the denominator, and then multiply that answer by the numerator. The way I remember this is divide denominator, then times top. So we start with 45 divided by 5, so dividing by the denominator, which gives us 9. Then we take that 9 and times top, or multiply by the numerator, and 9 times 3 is 27, so 3/5 of 45 is 27. Now find 4/5 of 35. So we start by dividing by the denominator, and 35 divided by 5 is 7. Then we take that 7 and times top, and 7 times 4 is 28, so that's our answer. Now find 5/8 of 32. So we start with 32 divided by 8, so dividing by our denominator, that gives us 4, and then we take that 4 and multiply by the numerator, so times top, and 4 times 5 is 20, so 5/8 of 32 is 20. So we know that normally to find a fraction of a number, we divide by the denominator, then multiply by the numerator. But here we've got missing number problems, so we need to do it the other way round. So our first question, 3/5 of what is 15? We can start by dividing by the numerator, so dividing 15 by 3. That gives us 5, and then we can take that 5 and multiply it by the denominator, and 5 times 5 is 25, so that's our missing number. And we can see that this works because 25 divided by 5 is 5, and then 5 times 3 is 15. Now, 3/4 of what is 27? So to find our missing number, we can start by dividing 27 by the numerator, and 27 divided by 3 is 9. Then we can take that 9 and multiply by the denominator. 9 times 4 is 36, so that's our missing number. And again, we can check that this works. 36 divided by 4 is 9, and then 9 times 3 is 27. Now 3/7 of what is 21? We can start by dividing 21 by 3, so dividing by the numerator, that gives us 7. Then we can take that 7 and multiply it by the 7 that's in the denominator. 7 times 7 is 49, so that's our missing number. And again, let's check that this works. 49 divided by 7 is 7. 7 times 3 is 21. Now for these division problems, we get a remainder. So 13 divided by 3 is 4 remainder 1. That's because 4 times 3 is 12, but then we need one more to get to 13. But rather than writing 4 remainder 1, we can write our remainder as a fraction. So 4 is our whole number, 1 is the numerator of our fraction, so the remainder is the numerator, and then the denominator is the divisor, so the number that we were dividing by. So for 13 divided by 3, rather than writing 4 remainder 1, we can write 4 and 1/3. Now 15 divided by 4, that's 3 remainder 3, because 3 times 4 is 12, but then from 12 we need 3 more to get to 15. But we can write our remainder as a fraction. That 3 is our whole number, the remainder is our numerator, and the divisor is the denominator, so the number we're dividing by is always the denominator. Now 802 divided by 5, so we need to use short division here. 8 divided by 5 is 1 remainder 3. 30 divided by 5 is exactly 6 with no remainder, but then 2 divided by 5 is 0 remainder 2. So we can write 160 as our whole number, the remainder as our numerator, and the number that we're dividing by as our denominator. so that's 160 and 2/5. Now 716 divided by 7. Again, we're going to need short division here. 7 divided by 7 is exactly 1 with no remainder. 1 divided by 7 is 0, remainder 1. And 16 divided by 7 is 2, remainder 2. So 102 is our whole number, our remainder 2 is our numerator, and our denominator is the number that we're dividing by. So our denominator is 7. So that's 102 and 2/7. So for these questions, we're finding a unit fraction of a number. Remember, a unit fraction is any fraction that has 1 as the numerator. So normally, to find a unit fraction of a number, we just divide by the denominator. But for these questions, when we divide by the denominator, we get a remainder. And so that means that we will have a mixed number as our answer. So for 1/3 of 11, we can write the question out as 1 times 11 over 3. So that's 11 over 3. Now 11 divided by 3 is 3 remainder 2. That's because 3 times 3 is 9, but then we need 2 more to get to 11. And our denominator stays the same. So our answer is 3 and 2/3. Now for 1/5 of 17, we can write the question out as 1 times 17 over 5. So that's 17 over 5, and we need to divide to get our mixed number. 17 divided by 5 is 3, remainder 2. So 3 is our whole number, the remainder 2 is our numerator, and then the denominator stays the same. So 1/5 of 17 is 3 and 2/5. Now 1/7 of 22. So that's 1 times 22 over 7, or 22 over 7. 22 divided by 7 is 3, remainder 1. So 3 is our whole number, 1 is our numerator, and then the denominator stays the same. So our answer is 3 and 1/7. So for these questions, we're finding a fraction of a number. And normally, to find a fraction of a number, we divide by the denominator, then multiply by the numerator. But for these questions, we need to do it the other way round, because if we try to divide 11 by 8, we'll get a remainder. So it's easier to multiply by the numerator first, and then to divide by the denominator. So for 7/8 of 11, we can write our question out as 7 times 11 over 8, because remember, a fraction is really a division. So 7 times 11 is 77, and if we have 77 over 8, to change our answer back to a mixed number, we can divide. 77 divided by 8 is 9, remainder 5. So the 9 is our whole number, and the remainder 5 is our numerator. The denominator stays the same, so 9 and 5/8 is our answer. Now we need to find 3/4 of 23. We can't divide 23 by 4 without getting a remainder, so instead we're going to multiply 3 by 23 and then divide by 4. 3 times 23 is 69, so we have 69 over 4. And if we want to change that back to a mixed number, we need to work out 69 divided by 4. 6 divided by 4 is 1, remainder 2. 29 divided by 4 is 7, remainder 1. So the remainder is our numerator, and the denominator stays the same. So 3/4 of 23 is 17 and a quarter. Now 3/5 of 17. 17 divided by 5 leaves a remainder, so we need to start by multiplying our numerator. So we need to work out 3 times 17. 7 times 3 is 21, so 2, 1. 1 times 3 is 3, plus 2 is 5. So 3 times 17 is 51. So we have 51 over 5. So to change that back into a mixed number, we need to divide. 51 divided by 5 is 10 remainder 1. So 10 is our whole number, 1 is our numerator, and the denominator stays the same. So our answer is 10 and 1/5.